My name is Kyle Ackerman, and this is my review of Data and Goliath. The nice part about reviewing the book Data and Goliath is how it's 7 years old and it's aged well. The claims it makes are backed up through history now instead of conjecture. In the 7 years since that book has been released, we've seen presidential elections where there have been rumored or confirmed cases of Russian interference, Chinese interference, interagency interference in one way or another. Any one of those requires surveillance. It requires information on candidates, on people, because you need a target for your propaganda. A pandemic is the other thing we've seen in that 7 years, unlike any other we've ever seen. But this time, our phones were able to track it. They would keep track of us in our pocket and would notify us and who knows who else when we came into contact with someone who had the coronavirus. The third is government lockdowns and how we've seen different cities, states, and countries react differently to lockdowns, but more importantly for this discussion, use data to enforce those lockdowns. Some of the stats that were crazy to me about this book was that you're 87% identifiable with your zip code, your date of birth, and your sex. Those three things make you unique. The scariest one by far was that 50% of drone strikes from 2009 to 2010, they did not have a positive identification. They did not have the target's age or sex. They had a virtual profile of the individual that fit who they were looking for. And there was no confirmation afterwards that they got it correct. And the third claim is that there's 2,000 companies in the Common Dreams article listed below. It says 4,000, so 2,000 to 4,000 companies that the U.S. government hires out to surveil us. 70% of our surveillance budget goes to them. It's hard to argue with a lot of these facts because in this short 16-chapter book, there's 279 notes. It's chock full of information. It's broken down into three different parts: the world we're creating, what's at stake, and what to do about it. So in the world we're creating, the Guardian article really summarizes this well. It talks about how Amazon uses its Kindles to track us, and it, again, creates a virtual profile of us based on how fast we read, what books we read, what we highlight, what we have to look up. And it creates recommendations. It knows people we associate with. It knows all these sort of things based on GPS, based on just that little bit of information. It creates a profile about us where it can recommend new books, and it's valuable enough to sell off to a third party. What's at stake? In the National Review article, it talks about how Australia locked down citizens for 200 days. They could go out for exercise and they could go out to shop. And that part's not as important to this discussion, but it is important on how they kept track of that. You need to have people watching if you're going to keep someone locked down. So what they do is they create that virtual profile of you. And when you deterred away from your norm, they assume that you were going out and they check on you. The third part of the book is the most controversial in my eyes, and it's what to do about the oversight. And it gives suggestions for government, companies, and people. And in this part, I thought the author gave too much of a utopia view of what could happen. I don't think he was realistic with himself on how far government or companies would go when so much money was on the line. All in all, it was a very good book, and I would recommend it to anybody.